Out of all the Hexerei characters that got buffed, the one that arguably got the biggest glow up is Razer. Best team is an overload one, paired with either Official or Durin. Before I explain further, let's talk about what buffs Razer received that elevated him to this level. Razer got changes in two areas, the new Hexerei passive and his C6. His Hexerei passive gives him some extra damage, but the real important bit is the fact that it gives him a large amount of energy refund, which significantly reduces the amount of energy recharge he needs to build. As for his C6, it gives him a large amount of crit value, 70 to be exact. This increase in stats can be gotten by first generating electro sigils, which are these things, and then either using his burst or hold skill afterward. Generating electro sigils can be done by using his tap skill, so to get the buff instantly, tap skill into burst is something basic that you can do. No changes were really made to his gameplay overall. He's still meant to be a physical normal attack spammer, evident from his burst's effect and damage source. That said, the best way to use him is through an overload comp in combination with Bennett C6, so that his normal attacks can be used with Pyro. This is an example of the comp, and as you can see, it hits fairly hard. At this point, this is probably the most showcased comp, so I'm going to do something a little bit different. One thing the overload comp neglects is Razer's Ascension stat, which is still physical damage bonus. So I'm going to use Razer as intended, a physical damage dealer. One of his best partners for this still ends up being Official. Razer's intended playstyle is associated with doing somewhat fast normal attacks, which synergizes well with how Official's damage from Oz works. As for the other two characters, I chose Furina and Escoffier. Furina is one of the only characters that can buff physical damage thanks to the universal aspect of her buffs. Also helps that she buffs everything since parts of Razer's damage will still be electro. Escoffier is also there for healing and cryo application. I needed a cryo unit that could periodically apply and heal to synergize with Furina, so this ends up working out pretty well. Now, since the Abyss I used this team in was a 6.21, I wanted to focus mainly on plunges from Dragonstriking. I had done a poor showing in Dragonstrike's last video with Mona, since I hadn't had enough time to get acclimated. This time though, I was a little bit more prepared. I could Dragonstrike off of all of his normal attacks mostly, and off of both versions of his tap skill, all without movement speed. If you want a guide on how to do this, I have actually made a video guide recently, and you can check it out in the description below after this video. Game build set, I decided on 4-piece Glad for Razer. At face value, this doesn't really make much sense. After all, I'd be plunging for a decent portion of my damage. My reasoning was that plunging damage was already getting buffed by the Abyss's Leyline disorder on top of getting damage bonuses from Furina, so I didn't want to inflate the stat more than it would normally be. Additionally, I'd still be normal attacking with Razer throughout my attempts, and my Gladiator pieces are significantly better than most of my other pieces in terms of artifact quality. Kinda happens when you're a 1.0 player. As for his weapon, I decided to use Serpent Spine. It's pretty much the best thing I have for him to use. Moving on to Official, she's on 4-piece Golden Troop and Skyward Harp, pretty self-explanatory. Fortunately, her Hexen buff isn't too useful here, only able to give some EM to the party, which I guess is better than nothing. I put Furina on a 4-piece Tenacity of the Millilith set with Fab Sword as her weapon. I also intentionally reduced her total HP so as to make fanfare generation faster. And finally, Escoffier was on 4-piece Noblesse with Fab Lance as her weapon. My overall rotation isn't that fixed, but the general steps are as follows. Furina E and 1Q, Escoffier EQ, Official E/Q because you alternate between rotations for her, and Razer is a little bit more complicated, so tap E plunge, Q, tap E plunge, and then 2 N3P, and then another tap E plunge to round off his overall on-field time. Gotta say, having a damage dummy is pretty nice to showcase full rotations because Masanori died really quickly a lot of the time when I was doing rotation testing, so it's pretty nice to have this now in Melee Astra. I try to follow this plan as much as possible, but keeping consistent Dragon Strikes is generally hard, and also there are things that happen that make it so that I have to swap out early or I have to address certain enemy mechanics, as you well know. At any rate, it's time to get going to the Abyss.
Alright, so starting out with some Abyss commentary here, you can see I'm using pretty much the standard team you would use with Venti Durin here. And in terms of the optimal combo, you do something like N2RR. You can see I'm doing it somewhat okay here. I mess up, on occasion throughout these Abyss runs because toggling the aim mode on keyboard sometimes is a bit buggy. If you do it too quickly, it just causes you to stay in aim mode and it doesn't accept your second aim mode toggle input. It's a little bit easier to do Venti's you know, Venti's optimal combo on controller, because on controller for some reason you just have to press one button. Instead, for keyboard and mouse, you have to press it twice, and you know, if you press it too quickly, it gets eaten up, and you just look like a dumbass aiming your bow down. So yeah, I will get better at this. I can promise you that. I will get better over time. But yeah, I am, as you can see, messing up quite a bit. I mean, like, that was like, what, 4 times of mess up? If I remember correctly, for Venti, optimally you can do 8 N2 RRs in a row, I think, if I'm correct. I'm just aiming for 7. I don't think I'm able to do 8 N2 RRs very often, if at all. Yeah, aim canceling with bow is something I don't generally do. Anyway, now we're on to the Razer side, and these weasels are about to get a headache. Because you can do 3 plunges in pretty quick succession, and once you do a plunge, it actually interrupts their AoE attack, so pretty nice. Yeah, I could have already swapped earlier before doing that N3 plunge, but you know, fun. Might as well do again, right? I will say that I am lacking a bit on damage here because my Escoffier is only level 70, which means her overall healing is actually pretty, like, relatively lower than it could have been. Another thing too about these weasels when doing Dragonstrike is you can get caught on their body when they're out of their ball form, which makes it actually really annoying to Dragonstrike on them afterward. Pretty obnoxious, but you know. Ah, my god, why are you dashing so early? Yeah. Pretty good overall. At least in terms of how I wanted to play. It's significantly better than when I was playing this with Mona. Or, sorry, playing Razer in the Mona video. Right, next chamber. I'm doing continuous runs, so I have to get my energy back up because a little bit less energy due to the end of the previous chamber. And it's still, you know, pretty standard stuff. Your rotation is pretty much set. Main thing is to make sure you do your N2 RRs properly and don't cancel your N2 with the aim cancels. Yeah, that can happen where if you tap RR twice, you can go into the aim mode and it doesn't register it until after, and then it just looks so dumb. It looks so suboptimal. Oh, it's crazy. Anyway, this chamber was probably I wouldn't say most difficult, but I was scared of using Farina initially because of this chamber, since these enemies are Hydro immune. And Farina is a decent part of this team's damage, so yeah, losing effectively 1 character's worth of damage is not great, but I think it ends up working out anyway, just simply because, you know, this team, like the other 3 members on this team, do more than enough damage to clear. The first Hydro Mimic is actually really annoying to get damage off, or I guess Hydro Fairy Tensum, but it's pretty annoying to get the damage off properly with Dragonstrike because you can get caught on the hitbox in certain areas. That's fine. The second one's actually much easier to Dragonstrike on because it maintains a relatively flat profile when attacking instead of this like tall jutting profile. So you can Dragonstrike pretty well. As I fail Dragonstrike. Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty standard rotation setup, right, that we mentioned earlier. I keep canceling N3 a little bit early here. It's a bit of a problem. Like there, I didn't cancel it early. That's kind of the risk with Razer timing. If you're a bit too antsy about your dash jump input, you can just end up canceling your entire thing. And then you just look dumb, jumping up and down. But anyway. Over the last chamber. Well, this boss, I mean, it's pretty much meant for Venti Durin. I don't think there's really much of anything to say because, you know, this is the exact situation you want to be in for this team. A boss that requires you to do like pyro hits. I actually did this chamber first, if I remember correctly, when I was doing my runs. So, which is why you'll see the Venti charge attack cancels or not charge attack cancels, aim cancels are really bad. Like what the hell are you doing? Why is it so bad? Anyways, enemy takes a lot of self damage because of this team setup. Venti just freaking shreds. If I played better, I could have killed this before it gets up, but because I'm not good at aim cancels, I don't. Also with better timing, I definitely could have killed it in one phase rather than having it get back up to its resistant phase where I have to apply a lot of pyro onto it again. Anyways, I'm gonna have some fun with the mech. This is probably like the most like me-coded enemy in the game. Where you just plunge the crap out of it. I still think I should be doing standard rotation stuff, just simply because I still have 4-piece glad, so it's only my normals do no damage. And also they break the shield. I would think faster, just because of the normal attack speed boost that Razer gets from his burst. But it's okay, we're just having fun here, honestly. This is just a for fun boss. Here actually you can see me pivot back to like the original setup. Anyways, you're probably thinking at this point, it's like, man, there's only like 10 seconds left. Surely this is not gonna, you're not gonna be able to clear in time, right? Oh, you have no idea. I'm about to pull out the like quick plunge text. There we go. And let's see this.
Now, while the buffs on Razer are nice, I think this is a relatively lazy rework, all things considered. The fact that they just basically, one, just completely removed any energy requirements he has, and then two, just gave him a butt ton of damage just through stat changing, is, relatively speaking, uninspired in comparison to, say, like Mona, which got more reworks in terms of her overall kit and also just playstyle in general. Razer still plays the same way as he did, which, to be honest, I guess isn't a total downside because, you know, to make the argument, not many people were playing him anyway, so they didn't have to change his overall gameplay. But it still feels kind of lame that they didn't do something more with his kit. And especially since now his best teams are literally overload base with Bennett C6 infusion, even though he has a physical damage ascension talent, I think speaks volumes about, you know, their overall character design not being as solid as it could have been. That's not to say that it's a bad thing that there are options, but I can tell you for a fact most people are not using Razer as a physical DPS when they're talking about using him at all. I think most of the time the conversation is around his overload team, as evident by the amount of videos that I searched up and I looked up Razer and saw pretty much the overload team, and that's about it. So yeah, kind of lame, but you know, it is what it is. At least he's quote-unquote usable, even though he was usable before this. I don't know, maybe my standards are different compared to other people in general, but you know, I like a character enough, I'll just make them work regardless of how perceivably bad they are. How would I do? Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video, and well, if you look at the community section, you'll see probably another survey on who to do next. I can already predict who will be next, which is why I got some practice on him earlier in this video. I gotta say, though, my N2RR cancels are pretty bad. But at any rate, see you next time.